Well, let's just talk a little bit about the bourses. One of the places you do operate in is Nigeria, Kenya. Mauritius, we don't hear so much about. Do tell us about what is interesting in that economy for you.
Mauritius has obviously a well-diversified economy today, which started with sugar 30 years ago and then diversified into textile and tourism. And today, Mauritius is a hub for financial services, call centers, and is basically a service-oriented economy with interesting prospects for everything which is linked to outsourcing globally.
This is actually what is interesting about African economies right now, because there was some, Mauritius, for instance, has been known by most people to be a tourism destination. Kenya also the same. And what we're seeing on the African continent is more and more diversification. Just talk to us about the opportunities and some of what you're seeing in terms of how economies are managing to diversify themselves now.
Yes, definitely. And we see more and more investments into the whole continent in Africa. Nigeria, for instance, receives lots of investments for obviously natural resources and the whole continent as well. But what's very interesting today in Africa, that these investments are sustained because of very strong banking networks across the continent. Also, we see consumption rising with lots of investments linked to consumption, and obviously infrastructure, construction industry booming, and we can see the likes of Dangote Cement in Nigeria, Bamburi or Athi River Mining in Kenya doing extremely well in terms of companies' results.
But I wanted to talk a little bit about Dangote Cement, for instance. I was saying to you earlier on, there was quite for a long period this year where Dangote's stock seemed to be plunging, and you said it seems to be having a rebound now. Just talk to us a little bit about that particular stock and operating in the Nigerian space, and now we're seeing it that there is talk of it listing on the London Stock Exchange.
Obviously, everybody has known their very strong investment plans for a number of years. But today, what we see as very interesting, that the results are showing that in terms of management, there is a clear vision and very good results, which confirm that the vision is the right one. Secondly, Dangote recently announced two important news. First of all, a bonus issue, which obviously will please all shareholders. And secondly, the fact that the company will be listed on the London Stock Exchange, on the main market, in the coming month, which should help the stock market to get a better price.
Why I wanted to highlight this listing particularly was you were saying that it's going to have some positive impact on the share price of Dangote, for instance. I mean, we're not just looking at Dangote as a stock, but also other companies and what this would mean if they were to list outside of the bourses that they currently operate in.
Yeah, any dual listing going into main market, one of the main markets, either in London or in Johannesburg or sometimes in the US, mean that there will be more corporate information to international investors. International investors will have more frequent news about the company, more communication, more roadshows, etc., which can only help local investors to also get more news, and which will benefit the whole market as a whole.
One of the things that we've seen about Kenya and Nigeria has been, especially last year, we did see sort of like a downward trend when it came to those bourses, the main NSE in Kenya, the NSE in all share in Nigeria, and we're seeing some investor confidence coming back. And one of the things you were saying to me is that it seems that even local investors wait for foreign investors to take the cue on which stocks they should be buying.
Yeah, that's correct. And we've seen that in India as well. We've been importing investors into the Indian stock market for a number of years, and we see the same thing happening in Africa, where local investors tend to have a short-term view about the investments, and equity investments require a long-term view, long-term approach. So local investors will tend to participate only when foreign investors do invest into the home country. So that's a bit sad, because there are some opportunities which are being missed, but we need to recognize that fact. And for us as mutual fund managers, we look at foreign investment participation very closely to see where we should be investing in terms of different markets.
One of those issues about missing the opportunities is people will hear all this news, high yields in Kenya, high yields in Nigeria, and one of the things that you'll find is that individuals not knowing, well, if I want to put money into Kenya or into Nigeria or into Mauritius or wherever it is where it seems as though there are huge opportunities, not knowing exactly how they go about doing that. How then do you bridge that gap between investors who would like to invest and them actually getting into those markets?
Well, talking about investments is first of all talking about long-term investments. You cannot invest for 6 months or 1 year. So when talking about equity investment, you need to look at the company's 10 years past results and try to forecast the companies for the next 3 to 5 years. If you don't do that, then it's not worth investing. So you need to have a long-term view. So if you have a portfolio which needs to be allocated, then you will see how much you wish to invest into the bond markets, given the yield over the long term, how much you want to invest into the equities. And then every year you will rebalance, manage the portfolio in accordance to bond yields and equity prospects.
What I wanted to talk a little bit about is just how much, when we talk about foreign participation, how much do investors know about, this might sound like a silly question, but how much do people know about the geographics of Africa and also just understanding the dynamics? Because we were interviewing somebody who's based in Nigeria about the attacks that have been happening there, and you were saying, well, what some people do not know is that these attacks are happening in the north and not so much in the south, where a lot of the economic activity is happening. So when you talk to investors and they look at Nigeria as a country and they see so much risk because they're not understanding the dynamics of that country, how much of that do you see and how then do you bridge that gap?
Yeah, it's sad to see that every day in the press you see some attacks from Boko Haram in Nigeria or Al-Shabaab on East Africa, doing some bad news which will detract investors' interest. But our job is, first of all, to do some research on the corporate side, and what we've seen in Nigeria, that these attacks have not really affected the company's earnings. So this is something positive so far. And then we need to make investors understand that companies' earnings, companies' results will be based on the company's strategy, the regional diversification, to balance the risk between the home market and international markets. And then it's our job to communicate all of this to global investors and to give good results to our investors into our mutual funds.